Hey everybody, Bob Chick back with another edition of the Voice of Bodybuilding podcast. As always, it is brought to you by our good friends at Redcon One and powered by Panado Sport. We always appreciate their ongoing support here at the VOB. All right, folks, what is going on this week? Well, I'd like to say something different, but it's really just more of the same. For those that follow my Instagram account and catch some of the other podcasts out there, you'll see there's a certain consistency with what people get absolutely wrong, which is amazing to me, that so many people could hear the same thing, yet come with their own conclusions. We're going to get into the specifics of that in just a second. I got to give credit where it's due, though. The latest from Dave Palumbo and Chris Aceto on their RX Muscle podcast, they actually do put it in question form. All right, so they actually put it out there, is Ramy forced to retire or something close to it with a question mark? Okay, that's still better than Trigili's, who doesn't really do it so much, right? He actually makes a point to say what I haven't said. And we'll get into that in just a second also. But first things first, we're going to roll clip number one and kind of see if we can decipher some of what Dave's saying.
You know, and Bob probably doesn't like me.
All right, whoa. All right, hang on. Let's just stop right there. Bob doesn't like me. You are of the few things that we actually agree on, Dave. You actually got this one right. No, I don't like you. I haven't liked you for some time. And you know why that is? There's some pretty good reasons behind that, Dave. I'm pretty sure you remember. Your memory ain't that shot, not yet. But remember last time you were making up stuff about me? Remember the whole Joe Rogan thing? And, you know, I was sending emails out and all this and that, and I completely just obliterated you and produced evidence, an actual email from the Joe Rogan people saying that they had never heard of you. They had no idea who you were. And then you just kind of disappeared without, as fast as you came in. MFing me, calling me every name in the book, being all outrageous. I still on the fence as to whether you were A, too stupid to figure out that you were being played like an idiot, or B, you were in on it. It's one or the other, though. There is no other choice. But go ahead. Roll the rest of the tape.
But this is what happens. Bob comes off as the guy who's speaking for the NPC IFBB, right? Like as an official, he comes off as like this official like word from the IFBB NPC, which I'm sure if you ask Jim Mannion, he'd say, I never told him that, you know, but he comes off as that. And then he gives advice like, you know, he really should retire, which people assume is coming now from above Bob because Bob is talking like he's talking, you know, from the organization. He should just give his own opinion, say, you know what, this is my opinion. It has nothing to do with, don't come off as like part of the organization and explaining why he didn't place well, but then give an opinion on the fact that he should retire.
All right, as you can see, Bob comes off as, all right, you know, he really should retire. People assume, and all these little things that Dave's saying in that clip. Bob comes off as, what does that mean? I come off as. I actually said exactly what I wanted to say. I don't have to come off as anything. I don't need you to assume anything. I don't need you to interpret for me. There's actually words coming out of my mouth. The idea now is for you and your co-host to comprehend the words coming out of my mouth. Did the word retire ever come out of my mouth? Ever. I have challenged Nick, and I still put that challenge out there. He chooses not to answer me because I'm going to make him look like a fool. Anybody, Dave, Nick, anybody else out there with a podcast in La La Land here, produce a clip of me telling Ramy he needs to retire, or anybody has told him to retire. Produce the clip of me saying the word retire. I open challenge anybody to do this. Why do I harp on this? Because I don't need you putting words in my mouth. You're just lying. Nick, we've already uncovered this and the truth. The CNN of bodybuilding. Fake News Nick. That's your new nickname. So I don't speak for the IFBB. Dave, if you actually watched my stuff before you report on it, as if you are watching it, you really should do your homework as a journalist. I never say I speak for the IFBB. I actually say the complete opposite. I actually go out of my way to say I'm not a spokesman for the IFBB or Jim Mannion or the Pro League or anything like that. So other than me saying it blatantly, all right, well, I come off as. No, that's your interpretation. I come off as. I'm giving you my opinion and my facts. If they don't line up with what you're thinking, that's probably a good thing for both of us, right? He really should retire. Is that what I said? Challenge is out there for you, Dave. Produce the piece, and I'll stop my channel right now. All right, we'll go WWE style, all right? The I quit match, all right? Either you quit or I quit. Back your big mouth up or keep my name out of it. It's that simple. If you're going to quote me, and I'm all for it, go ahead. It's good for biz, right? At least get what I say right. At least put the proper quote up there, or quote me exactly, or put the text out there. We have all these abilities these days. People assume a great deal, and it's never a good idea, especially when you got the guy himself sitting right here telling you. All right, so for all you people out there still harping on the fact of what happened at the Arnold and why did Ramy lose? Why did Nick lose? They lost because the judges felt the other guy was better. It's that simple. If you can't see this, there's really no helping you. All right, let's go on to clip number 2.
Ramy made a response, and Ramy's like, how come this guy doesn't give anyone else advice to retire? He only wants me to retire. He didn't come to anyone else. In other words, Bob didn't offer that advice to anyone else to retire.
All right, once again, as you can see, and I quote, Bob didn't offer advice for anyone else to retire. Bob didn't offer any advice for anybody else to retire. This is in reference to the Big Ramy piece that he put out, allegedly in response to me, which I find interesting because he never actually calls me by name. He could be responding to anybody that's put this erroneous stuff out there, since I never told him to retire. Once again, go back and comprehend what I said. Okay? And then you go on, this is the best part. You go on to actually, well, let's just play the clip because I don't want to get it wrong, okay? Play clip number 3.
Right. But if you're like if you're former Mr. Olympia, you're at the elite level of your sport, whether it be boxing or bodybuilding, don't you regroup, create a game plan like what Ronnie Coleman did essentially when he, lost to Gunther, and just give it 100% for the whole year, come back and just show everyone like a different version of yourself.
All right. There you have it. Right out of the horse's mouth. Dave's advice is to Big Ramy. Go away for a year, regroup, and show a different version of yourself at the Olympia. This is almost verbatim. Almost verbatim. If you guys don't know what that means, look it up, Dave. Okay, verbatim, word for word. What I told Ramy to do. You just told me the exact same thing. Go take a year off, get yourself right, get yourself, your health right, and all that stuff, and come back with a different... If we can play the clip of me saying that, and we can maybe... Well, let's just say he wants to compete. He thinks he's got more gas in the tank. First and foremost, I would take some good time off. Okay, let your body heal. Secondly, if you want to try stem cell or any type of treatment type thing, any type of HRT, lots of stuff out there today that can help, peptides, other things. You can go that route. Okay? And then you can kind of revamp your physique. If I was Ramy and I was coming back, you wouldn't see me for a year. He's already qualified for life as a former Olympian, by the way. If you're a former Mr. or Miss Olympia, any Olympian winner, you were qualified for life. So he could miss a year and he doesn't have to requalify, which is, I think, is a good rule, of course. You've earned that right. I would come back with a whole revamped physique. You'll see that's exactly what I said. So now your advice is the same as mine, Dave, right? But it's when I come out with it, I'm an IFBB puppet. I'm speaking for the pro league, mouthpiece. I'm coming across right? All that stuff. You guys are something, boy, I tell you. Listen, I don't mind you using my stuff. I don't mind you using my name or the pieces I put out in the various podcasts and even my own. Go ahead. Listen, it's fair game for everybody. I use clips of you. You use clips of me. That's cool. But at least get it right. Don't just make stuff up. It makes you look like a damn fool. And it puts words in my mouth, which, again, I don't need your help. I think everybody got it just right. All right? So hopefully, I really doubtful that this is going to happen. But I'm really hoping that this puts to bed. Okay? Can you guys find something else to talk about at this point? It's already done. It's over. There are logical reasons why. I've already explained this. What are the judges looking for? How did the judging take place? What was the scoring procedure? We've already been through all this stuff. Is it really that big of a stretch that Samson beat Big Ramy, beat Nick, or beat Jacked? Is it really? I mean, if you're looking at physiques and you're looking at exactly what everybody's been clamoring for the last 4, 5, 6 years, it's all I've heard. We need the physiques of yesterday. We need to return to the 90s when bodybuilding was good. These guys today are horrible, all this stuff. And now you get a physique that is literally a throwback with beautiful proportions, great symmetry, great muscularity. Finally got his conditioning on point, and you're really surprised he won? Is this really that big of a stretch? I mean, come on, man. Listen, people, you got to do your homework and research. Listen to those of us who have been around, not just me. Listen to all the podcasts. There's other experts out there who got it right. If you listen, 99% of the experts got it right. Nobody was comparing complaining about the results. I was just on with DJ the other day, the old school roundtable. DJ Milos, Chris Cormier, myself. Nobody contested it. Not one. So why do I get all the heat? DJ didn't contest it himself, and he was helping to train Big Ramy. He said, and I quote, "I have no problem with the placings," unquote. You can look that up. Seems to make sense to me. But anyway, thank you for everybody that came on the live just the other day. Oh, once again, it was a great interaction with the fans. I hope to make this a regular, and as long as we keep getting the business, as long as you guys got questions, I got answers. I know we tend to focus on the competitions and that type of activity that's going on currently, but I can answer pretty much any question you got if it's bodybuilding related, training related, diet related. Obviously, we don't turn our head when it comes to the use of drugs and things like that. Now, I'm not going to provide anybody a roadmap. I think that's pretty clear from anybody that's been following me for any length of time. I don't get into the nitty gritty of it and all that. Everybody's an adult. Okay, we deal with a professional federation, a competition. Everybody can do what they want to do. Again, I'm not pointing fingers, but I'm also not going to provide a roadmap, a blueprint, if you will, of what people should or shouldn't be doing. So don't ask me specific questions about what drugs you should be using, or what do you think about tests or trend, or anything like that. I'm not going to get that specific. I can give you basics of information. I can give you the 5 W's as it would be on it, but anything else, again, diet related, prep related. We got into the last 5 minutes is actually very informational as we talk about somebody asked what not to do on stage or something of that effect. And I went into some of the things that I've seen over the years that will keep people back in placings or literally from winning a show. And some of that was tanning related. Some of that is what they're doing backstage. If you're eating stuff in the last minute, the last second, and even until the last couple of days, there's nothing that's going to help you really in that time frame. To that degree, you're either ready or you ain't. I've always equated getting ready for a competition with landing a plane. Okay, it's not an abrupt, they're here and then boom, they're all of a sudden they're on the runway. It's a nice, easy glide in, all right, where you can barely even tell that you're hitting the ground. Did you ever get a nice landing like that where you're like, oh, I didn't even realize we landed because the pilot was so smooth in their landing. That's how you want to go into a competition. Smooth and sure with a game plan that you stick to and that it works. There's no abrupt up or down or left or right. Okay, and there's a good reason for that. All that, what I always call voodoo stuff at the end, will certainly keep you out of the winner's circle. It almost never works. It's literally a roll of the dice, and I think putting 12 or 16 weeks or half a year or whatever it might be, investment into a competition that you are clearly going in to try to win, to take all that on a gamble, on a roll of the dice, I hear way too many times, well, what happened at the show? And the answer will be, well, we tried something new. Is this really the time to be trying something new? Now, whether that's an excuse or not, listen, up to speculation, right? But especially before a big show, like I've heard this in the pros, not just local or regional shows. We decided to try something new. And you thought the day before the Olympia, after you just put thousands of dollars of prep, hundreds of hours of prep in terms of the gym, in terms of your diet, you put your whole life on hold, you sacrifice relationships, whatever else, and you decided that was a good time to do something you've never done before. Any action will get a reaction. And in bodybuilding terms, that's not really always going to be at your best interest. Okay, it's usually going to backfire, and that's what happens. And you'll hear 9 times out of 10, I look better the day before the show. Listen, people, I'm not giving you a holier than thou type speech here. I've done this. Okay, I'll be the first to admit. That's why it took me forever to turn pro, because the further I got away from a simplistic formula, when I was young and stupid, there was nothing to mess up. I did what I thought I should have been doing. And a lot of times, I look back and I think, well, that probably wasn't the best in terms of what I should have been doing or what I could have been doing. But the smarter I got, the worse I got. And then, research and looking into this and and now all of a sudden, instead of having just 3 balls that you could be juggling up in the air, you had 10. And now any combination of those 10 things could go wrong. And this is a problem at this point, right? Because you can't even fix it. And I was there for 10 years of trying to fix it. And finally, I got back. And you know what the interesting thing is? When I finally got the help I needed, and I've given much praise over the years to George Fair, who was my trainer at that time, his program was so simple. It was very close to what I did when I started at the national level way back in 87. Way back then, placing in the top 5, knocking on the door with a second place finish at the U. I was right there. Next big thing. I got all kinds of magazines I'll share with you at some point. Articles and things. And you shouldn't be long now. And the next sure thing, be a pro by next year and all that. Yeah, by next year, be another 12, 13 years by that point, by the time I got back to where I should have been. But again, that's something for another show when we'll get specific. But again, on those lives, every Sunday, folks, I always put the time up, always give you a fair warning. If you got questions on your prep, getting ready for a competition, whatever, I'll do my best to answer all your questions. Those questions did inspire me to look some stuff up as I was looking for some material for this week's podcast. And I came across something, I got to be honest, it's a little unnerving. Okay, I guess it's the word I'm going to use here today. On Facebook, I saw a post, and a lot of you might remember, a lot of you that were on the boards years ago, Muscular Development, Get Big, some of the bigger online presence that we had back then of bodybuilding forums. There was a guy named Boston Lloyd. And when I say guy, I should say kid, because he was a young kid in his 20s that came along. And oddly enough, I didn't know personally, but I knew of his father. His father, John Lloyd, was a hell of a bodybuilder back in the 70s. I'll have to look around. I might have a picture of him from one of my old mags. But he was a damn good bodybuilder, and he competed right up there with the best of them back at that time frame. But this was his son, Boston, who picked up the idea to maybe start bodybuilding, maybe in the footsteps of his father. That's cool. But it quickly became apparent, if you were following his material on Facebook, on any of the outlets, that he wasn't so much in love with training or bodybuilding. He was in love with drugs. He loved using anabolics, any kind of steroid, and he even came up with a company called Team 3cc. The reference, very obvious, and his credo was that any 3cc syringe, which is pretty standard in the medical field, should never be half full. You fill that bad boy up all the way to the brim. Don't waste a syringe. That type of mentality. Well, listen, I'm not going to get into the ins and outs of all that stuff, but clearly this was the wrong direction to go, and it manifested with really not a great physique, anyways. He did compete a few times, mostly at the beach shows, things like that. Not really in the NPC as much. Didn't really get him anywhere. He self-admittedly, he actually didn't even like training. Now, if you don't like training, I mean, you're not really going to go anywhere in bodybuilding, okay? Not competitive bodybuilding. You can look decent, and he did. He looked decent, but he had a few catch sayings and things like that as he tried to propel this business of this Team 3cc and selling stuff to people and stuff like that. But he had like this little moniker of "Get big or die trying." Now, as most people know by now, we lost Boston some years back at the tender age of 29 years old, still in his 20s. You talk about a tragedy. The kid obviously was lost and just couldn't find his way out. He ended up dying. And it's a shame because he had just gotten married. They just had a child, as I know, which was probably, I don't remember the exact time frame, maybe a year old by the time he died. So this is a child who's never going to know his father. And the sad thing about this is I just saw a Facebook post, and I'm assuming it's from his mother, somebody in his family, and it had a new headstone that they were going to put for where he's buried, wherever that is. And on the headstone, there's a picture of him in a side chest pose. Okay. But then it actually says the words, "Get big or die trying." Am I missing something here? I mean, you actually are glorifying this ridiculous saying that actually out of the two choices, he did die. Why would you ever put this on his headstone? Is incomprehensible to me, but it glorifies the fact that he was all about taking drugs and taking a lot of them. He liked to experiment. Again, these are his words, not mine, folks. You can look it up at any of those outlets. I'm sure those threads are still there. And he was very adamant that he was just going to do what he wanted to do. He didn't really care about anybody's opinion. And even though people would warn him time after time after time that this was not going to end well, and listen, there was plenty of people right before him that went down the same path. The Derek Anthonys of the world, Brad Hollabaugh, Rich Piana. Rich might have actually died after him, but not too far. These were examples right in front of you guys doing the exact same thing, who all met the exact same fate. They all met their demise way too early in life because they had this attitude of just, whatever, man, I'm just going to take as much gear as I can possibly load up, and I'll deal with whatever comes later. And whatever came later with all of them was increased, not only steroids and such, but recreational drug use, kidney failure, and then ultimately death. And this is a shame. I also saw where the gym he trained at, apparently called Pro Gear Gym, they have a piece of equipment that they dedicated to Boston because this was the last piece of equipment that he trained on and all that. And on there is his name and the Team 3cc logo. Once again, what is wrong with you people? Team 3C, do you know what that stands for? That stands for a guy, a young kid who lost his life way too early. And you want to glorify that. Team 3cc, as if they, do you guys find it that light? Like, is it funny to you people that this kid died of exactly what he was putting out there, and now you glorify it by putting it out there? Why would you just not put a dedication to him as a person? But why would you put the cause of death? It's like a guy dying in a car crash, and then you put up a picture of a car crash and said, I guess you should have taken those lessons. Ha ha. I mean, is that really funny to anybody? I wouldn't think so, but, maybe I'm looking at it a little bit differently. You guys can comment as you will, but it did bring up some different ideas that I had as I looked at this. One, you don't ever want to glorify drug use. You also don't want to give it that kind of weight. You know why a lot of bodybuilders don't like talking about drug use? Because they don't want all their accolades, all their wins, all their accomplishments reduced down to taking some anabolics, if that's what they're doing. Because it is much more than that, as everybody knows. All right? Drugs don't sculpt a physique. Training does. Diet does. All right? Drugs give you a base, or that's at least what they should be doing if you were taking them young enough and early enough. So you develop a base that doesn't go anywhere. People to this day ask me, how do you stay so big? I don't understand. Listen, I only train 3 days a week, sometimes less. Sometimes I'd like to get more in, but with travel and such, it gets difficult. Well, because I train from 13 to 20, eating school lunch, macaroni and cheese, cereal in the morning, whatever mom made for dinner. There was no dieting back then. I was trying to get big. I wasn't trying to lose weight. All right. Even for competitions. I was playing football and baseball in high school. So there was no time for diet or supplement. I didn't even take supplements. Nothing. It was just natural training as a young man, young boy. And I built that base, and it's always stuck with me. So whether into my national days, into my pro days, and even beyond, I never relied on this stuff. Now, do I think it's a good idea these days to get on a TRT program or such? Absolutely. Listen, I'm not afraid of this stuff. Nobody should be. These are things you should be utilizing as part of keeping yourself young, fit, keep the joints going. Testosterone drops in men. We all know that. Estrogen drops in women as you get older. So these aren't things you should be afraid of. Now, again, you're not doing Olympian dosages of these things, of course, or you shouldn't be, because that's not what you're looking for when you're into your 50s. Trust me. Drugs are nothing but a supplement. You heard me use the term supplement. Yeah, there's some great supplements, great supplement companies like Redcon, who I'm always pushing, okay, and lots of good companies out there. But they're supplements in addition to supplement. That's what anabolics are. In addition to, they don't replace food, they don't replace training, and they don't replace rest and recovery. They just don't. Okay, they've done studies years ago. And some of the old mags actually covered this when they used to have columns on such things. They would have a placebo group. In that placebo group, two groups. One, they would give anabolics and they would train. The other one, they just gave anabolics, no training. You know what happened to the non-training group? Almost nothing. They literally gained a few pounds of water, but they gained no muscle mass. Steroids don't build muscle. They help you recover. You still got to go in there and beat the crap out of yourself in the gym. Remember the last time we talked? Nobody ever got big in the gym, right? You tear down muscle tissue in the gym, then you build it up. Rest, recovery, food, sleep, anabolics that'll help you recover, but nothing happens if that's all you're doing. It's never going to happen. It doesn't work like that. Gear does not replace time in the gym. I don't care how much you're taking. I don't care whether you're 3cc or not. You saw how that worked out, right? It doesn't replace years and years and years in the gym. You have to be consistent. One question everybody always asks, they always want to know what's the number one factor in bodybuilding, whether you want to get to the Olympia or whether you're just trying to look good for Friday nights out. Consistency. Get in the gym. Don't miss workouts. Unless you're competing, don't miss meals, of course, those type of things. Don't miss sleep. Listen, that's more detrimental than anything. If you don't have the recovery, the recoupability to get yourself to a point where your muscle is back to being 100%, then you got problems. You're not going to grow. You're going to hinder your progress. You still might make some, but it's going to be 50% of what you should be getting. You can't, I wish we knew that when I was a kid. Like you'd say, if I only knew then what I know now. We didn't know anything about recovery. We thought you went in the gym and you got big, right? You beat ourselves into the ground, training twice, 3 times a week with, say, the same body parts. This was not a good thing. Now, we didn't know any better. We were naive. And through research and development and things like that, and the information you have now at your fingertips, these are the type of things that not only will I tell you, but any good pro worth their salt will tell you the same thing. There's a difference between blowing up muscle and building it. A lot of people want to know, why don't the physiques today look as good as they did years ago? Well, the drugs are certainly a contributing factor. Could be a bunch of different factors in there. What type, how much, insulin, GH, there are different kinds of factors that come into play. They will get you big, but they will not give you a better physique. Again, blown up, not built up. There's only one way to build muscle, folks. That's in the gym, set after set, rep after rep. That's what's going to build muscle. Whether you take gear or not, that's a personal choice. But taking more of it might blow you up for a short period of time. But when you diet down, I'm here to tell you, most of that's going to go. And you're not going to be left with a physique that's going to be any better or not what you were expecting. So this brings me to, the idea that longevity in the sport is also dependent on what kind of a base that you've built. And I just put together a few notes here real quick to close out this segment. But we're talking about longevity. Okay, where does that come from? Well, it comes from building a good solid base, not being dependent on the gear, using the gear primarily for pre-competition, getting ready for the show, right? If we just look a little bit back through the last 10 years, and this is kind of frightening to me, but it's not just our sport. A lot of sports, people don't last nearly as long as you think. You see a guy like a Tom Brady around for 20 years, but, you forget. He went through 6 centers at that, same time frame, or 10, guards that were keeping him safe back there. I think the average in the NFL, I think it was like 3 years, something like that years ago. Less than 3 years? It's crazy when you think about it. But in bodybuilding, let's just take Brandon Curry, all right, since he was in this last Olympia, former Mr. Olympia. He is the longest tenured guy right now on the circuit. He's been around, for 15 years, all right, 2008 Mr. USA. We just saw him competing in this last Olympia. Still a great finish, still trying to get back to that second Sandow. But he is the longest tenured guy. Now, I say that because the Dexter Jacksons of the world are gone. He was 20 years on the Olympia stage, 30 years from the start. There's nobody around. If I just go back 5 years, okay? 2017, this is frightening to me, right? You had 18 competitors. I'm just going to take the Olympia as an example. 18 competitors, 2017 Olympia. See how many of these names are still around, right? Phil Heath, Big Ramy, Bonac, Dexter, Roden, Rowley, Nathan, Brandon we just mentioned, all right? Josh Lenardowitz, Cedric McMillan, Lionel Bayecki, Lucas Osladil, Max Charles, Johnny Jackson, Gerald Williams, Mike Lockett, Jeff Beckham, and Victor Martinez. Now, out of those names, and you just clued in, you saw exactly what I did, right? There's only four that are still competing today. All right? And from 2013, 10 years ago, there's only two, which is Big Ramy, who was literally making his debut, and Brandon Curry. Just two guys. Now, is this a frightening statistic? No. People come and they go in all kinds of sports. But it does emphasize what I've been saying, which is longevity in the sport has become a thing of the past where these guys aren't around that long. You got to make hay while the sun shines in the bodybuilding world if you're going to make a mark. So I think some of that's due to the current state of training. Again, some of it could be attributed to drug use, different things like that. But this is really a message to the next generation that's out there, the guys that are coming up. Make sure training is your number one priority, and you're eating and you're rest and recovery, okay? If those things are the first three things on your list, then you're going to be doing okay. And you might be around for the long haul, like a Dexter Jackson or some of those names that were around for many, many years at the Olympia level. All right, folks, so that's going to do it and wrap it up for this week's edition. As always, hit that subscribe button. We appreciate every bit of it. And get those questions in. I do my best to answer every single one of you as best that I can on the VOB channel right here on YouTube. So check it out, folks, and we will be back later this week. I'm sure there'll be more stuff brewing. We'll catch you then.